Oh, hey guys. Let's learn how to make particle systems in Unreal Cascade. Okay, so when I first started learning how to do 3D effects, I had the luxury of having a lot of amazing source assets at my fingertips, and that's exactly what I'm trying to do with my class. So if you missed the previous video and you don't have an intro to Unreal, I went over like what the files are in the class and how all those come together. In this video, we're going to focus just on particle systems, that lovely piece of the program called Cascade. So if I come over here, I've got this file opened up. Now, if you recall, to open these, there's a few different things you can do. You can browse to it down here in the file structure and find it. You can find something you like in the environment and just click on that. And you can actually double click on it right here, and that'll load it up. You can browse to it here like that, and then double click on it. There's a few ways to do it. All right, so I come over here, and this fire, by the way, I forgot to mention in the last video, is done by the amazing Justin Peterson. He did a fantastic job on it. It's very like handcrafted, but also very simple at the same time. It's super pretty. I like it a lot. Okay, so we're gonna try to break down all the different things that are happening in Cascade at a high level. There's a lot of buttons, and the key to all of this, like I said, the luxury is having a really nice asset that you feel like it hits a standard that you're trying to learn how to hit, and going through step by step and breaking down how it's constructed, what do all the different moving parts do, all that kind of stuff. I'm going to go into this more in a future video, but there's no shame at all when you're first starting of like following in the footsteps of others who have done really beautiful effects. It's how I learned. It's how we all learn. Doing it from scratch, you just run into so many problems with like, it's not working at all. You don't even know where to start. You get lost in the tool for hours and you haven't even made deep progress. But when you have a working particle like this, it's just way easier. Okay, anyway, enough said about that. So in Unreal, Unreal Cascade, like all parts of Unreal, there's extensive documentation. All right, so if you come over here, you can see that they've got the Cascade particle editor reference here at this URL, link in the description as well. This is similar to, it was the same documentation in the last video that I was talking about with the editor window. And this is great because it breaks down like very, very specifically. If you like to read, this is great for you. It has a few pictures, but it's mostly reading. And it shows you what all the buttons do. I'm just going to talk about it again from the perspective of an effects artist. Not going to go super deep, but you can read this up if you want. Also, it has this other interesting link, which is the particle systems reference, which is all of the specific modules within the editor. Now, within this whole setup, the modules are the things that live here in number 4, and specifically the ones that are the rows. So the columns are emitters, and the rows are the modules. So let me just get back into the actual program. So yeah, this is great because it talks about all the different modules in depth in a very technical, example-y kind of way. I'm going to do it from just more sort of hands-on, high-level VFX artists need to know kind of way. All right. So we've got our modules over here, and you'll notice that as I click through different modules, it is changing in the bottom left. It is not changing on the bottom, and the reason for that is they decided to set it up so that the curve editor would only track whatever you specifically want to see. So like, say over here, I'm like, oh, I want to adjust the color over life. Oh, that's actually hidden. This X, by the way, means that it's hidden. Let's do color over life, scale color over life on the flame's body. I can hit solo up here to just only show this column, which is an emitter, right? So it's only doing one emission, one type of particle instead of all the different types working together, because that's what all these other columns are. Okay, so I go over to color over life, and it shows me these really complicated, oh, sorry. It shows me, I should probably turn off video on this. I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to peace out because you're going to want to see all this stuff over here. Okay, so it's got all these complicated values over here, right? And that's not helpful because, like, what do they mean? Well, I'm going to kind of break it down for you. One thing you can do is you can hit this little graph button here, and it will show you all the different curves that are happening. And then there was one graph on there already, and this is where it gets kind of confusing. Because say I could come over here and say, I want to see this one, and I want to see this one, and I want to see this one. And pretty soon I've got a really, really messy graph editor. This is kind of nice if I want to compare two curves to each other and make them sync up somehow. But typically I like to just keep it clean. So if you right click, you can say remove all curves. And I don't know why it warns me, but I say yes. So scale color over life. Okay, so now it's totally borked, but I can hit fit, not auto, fit, and it will fit that curve very nicely to the bounds that are here. And also now, because I have this here, I can see a little more clearly what's happening and actually visualize it over here, right? Like basically what's happening, these, boy, what do I even say? Okay, so the arrive tangent is kind of the angle that this is pointed at. So typically I don't do tangent over here in the number form. I do the tangents by clicking on this and then grabbing this little handle, and then I'm not going to mess it up, but like wiggling that around, right? The inval, I don't know why it's called inval. It's really weird. The inval is the time percentage. So 0 is 0% time, or the beginning of the life. And 1 is 100% of the time. So 0 to 1, 0 to 100. There you go. So at time equals 0, do these colors. It's actually scale colors. So multiply these values by whatever the color is when it first spawns. And then at the time equals 100%, make it black. So it's like basically making all these black. That's what's happening. And I can get rid of this tangent because the arrive and leave tangent, yeah, doesn't matter. You only control those over here. Okay. And then there's all this other fun stuff. There's obviously, again, more you can read up if you want all the details. For this video, I'm going to now focus a little more on just what all the different kinds of things are, what they do, and what you're going to need to understand for the class. Again, coming from a complete beginner wanting to then make some really cool stuff. All right. So I can unsolo that, and let's just like talk about what's happening here. Like there's some very high level stuff to zoom back out. All of these emitters work together. I can double click on them and they minimize into these very small things. I can double click them again and they come back out. I can, with one selected, I can hit the arrow keys and shift their order. And this determines how they render in front of or behind each other. And then I can come over here, I can right click and say new particle sprite emitter. And that will give me these beautiful little plus signs. If I want to change the material on that, I can go to required, and you can see that it has material here. Now, if I browse to, say, one of my materials, like let's just do a shared material instance. So I'm gonna like select a material, and then if I hit this arrow, it just plops it in there. All right, so here's just a simple fuzzball material. Let's go in there, and I'm like, sweet, I love it. And then the screen alignment can be a variety of things. Throughout these, all these different required, you'll see different kinds. Like this one is velocity. That means whichever direction it's headed, it'll point in that direction. That one is as well. Square. Screen aligned is like facing camera position. Another one. Type specific. Yeah, these are all just kind of randomly. It has like documentation if you mouse over it too. Yeah, that's like the different ways that it can align or orient, etc. use local space and kill uncompleted are handy to think about when you're actually using these in a game. In the class, we're not going to worry too much about those. Duration, important to know. How long do you want the whole emitter to live? So that's this, again, that's this whole column. How long do you want this thing to be alive? If you set it to 0, then it will loop infinitely. So it'll live for a second and then live for another second and another and another and another. If you just want to play once, then it will live for a second and then you see it ends. And until you say restart sim or restart level, it won't start again because everything else is looping infinitely. Now, funny thing about this, if it's the only emitter playing, it'll start over for you, which is kind of fun. And it can be kind of confusing, but that's like a gotcha that you need to know about. Like, so if I have a particle emitter that, go back to this, loops one time, and it's the only one in there, or maybe everything else only loops one time too, like all the particle emitters, then the cascade will start over for you. Otherwise, if it has like infinitely looping particles everywhere, they'll keep playing and the burst one will just never fire again. It's kind of sad. If I click out here in the black nether region, that is the properties for the entire particle system. So if nothing is selected at all, it assumes that you're talking about the parameters for the whole particle system. And yeah, it's just things like warm up time. You can think about like, you know, maybe you want it to like start out, like here I'm restarting sim and it's, oh, get rid of that. That's kind of lame now. And it like kind of starts like off, but I want it to always start fully on. So I can warm it up by 2 seconds. And so now when I restart it, it's like already playing. It's kind of cool. Seconds before inactive, I never use that. Delay, you can like have the whole thing just have a delay. Also in required, there's delay. I believe each emitter has its own delay. Maybe that's, yeah, there it is, delay. So you can have the whole particle system delay, you can have just the emitter delay, etc. So that's fun. So required, that's something that, as you can imagine, is required for every emitter. It's always on, always there. Spawn is another one that is super, super common. Let's see here. So spawn down here has all this fun stuff, just like, do you want it to spawn 20 per second? Or do you want to spawn 1 per second? So just 1, because it only lives for 1 second. Wait. Oh, I guess it's at the end of the second, and because it only lives for a second, nothing spawns. So maybe if I do 3, it'll spawn a couple. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, remember the lifetime, whoops, not the lifetime of the particle. Look at there a second. The lifetime, the duration of the emitter was only 1 second. So if it's like 1.1 seconds, then it'll actually spawn all 3 in that second, if that makes sense. Yeah. That's how it works, guys. I don't know. I don't write it. I just use it. If you want it to just all happen at once, you can do a burst. Now, this is a fun thing. So array elements. So I create one, and then I twirl this down, and that's my, like, how many I want to spawn at this time. So at time equals 0, I want to spawn 20. So it just spawned a bunch of them. And notice it's also still doing the 3 per second. So I hit that to 0. And so sometimes you'll come in and it'll be a 0 spawn amount, and you'll be like, oh, it's actually down here. Okay, so you'll also notice these distribution drop-downs, and these are pretty fun because you've got things like really hard to read words, float constant, float uniform. Yeah, it's not the most user-friendly thing in the world, but I'll tell you what they mean. So float constant is basically like we just had, it's one constant number. Constant curve is, if you, again, you have to twirl this down when it happens. And then you add points on a curve. So it's like, I want, remember we did inval 0, and then I always do this first because it messes me up if I don't. Inval 1. So now I know it's 0 to 1. And the out val is what you actually want. So it's like, okay, I want it to start spawning maybe 25, and then I want it to end spawning 0. So now what happens if I get rid of this burst? Going back and forth. Okay, so no burst. So now this is over the emitter lifetime. So it'll start spawning a ton and it'll end spawning a little. There we go. Okay. You can also do uniform, which is a random amount. So somewhere between 20 per second and 5 per second. So it'll give you kind of a ragged, uneven spawn amount, like not uneven cadence, which is kind of nice. All right, lifetime is how long the particles live, not how long the emitter lives. So each particle is going to live somewhere between 5 and 1 second. Now let's do 0.2 seconds. So some of them are really short and dying very early. Others are living way too long, maybe just 2 seconds. There we go. So they kind of have like varied lifetime. That's kind of cool. Initial size. Again, this is a vectored uniform, which is like a range of like what size you. Oh, it had good values before, and then I ruined it. So like some of them are big now, and some of them are small. And because this is important, notice I didn't have to put anything in the Y, just the X, because it's facing camera position and not type specific. It was scaling uniformly. So like if I go down here, so now there's some non-perfectly circular ones. I had to fill in everything, whereas before the required type forced it to be perfectly square. Does that make sense? It's kind of weird. I know it's like super bizarre, but watch out for that. Sometimes you want your particles to be squished. Other times you want them to be perfectly square. Just depends on what you're doing. All right, then we got initial velocity. That's obviously what makes it move upward. It has a velocity to it. So it's a slight side to side. So either positive 10 or negative 10, and then always up, but sometimes 100 up and sometimes 50 up. I don't know what those translate to, miles per hour or something. Who knows? Probably not miles per hour. Okay. Color over life. I can change the color. This is a fun one because it also has alpha over life. If you go down, and you'll see that this one is pre-populated with like values. It starts fully turned on at 1 and ends fully turned off at 0. I can just change that to 1 and they'll pop off. They won't fade. Cool. All right. These tangents, I don't know why my tangents are always, they didn't used to be that way. They add more complexity than you really need. So the out val is a color. You can click here and just choose your color, which is fun. And in Unreal, what's really great about this is you can go above 1, 1, and 1. So it's red, green, and blue. And if you want, you can come down here and say, I want the red to be like freaking 10. And I want the green to be 2. And I want, 5. Sure, blue is fine. And so what that will do is it will add bloom. And bloom is a fun camera effect that we're not going to see right here. Oh, by the way, you can come up here and change the background color to whatever you want. So it's easier to see certain particles. Okay, that's up there. These other ones, don't worry about them for now. We're not going to worry too much about what else is up here. But bloom, you can see if you come into the editor. Let's see if it's showing up for me here. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to bring it over to the level view now. I'm back. Hi. Okay, so remember what I said about it playing one time? One and done, and then it's over? Well, it's not playing here because it already spawned. So I have to actually click Restart Level over here in Cascade for it to play. You see how glowy that feels? It's because it's bloomed out. It's really small. Zoom in. So the reason specifically that it didn't show bloom in the particle editor is because that preview window doesn't have lighting or camera settings set up. So bloom is a camera post-process effect is what we call it. So it plays in this environment over here where we have camera settings, but it doesn't bloom and glow this much over in the particle editor. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so that's what we've got there. Now let's look at some fun stuff. I'll just turn this guy off because I like looking over here. Oh, and you can see it smoky now that it's not black anymore. See that nice color over life. All right, so you can add more. You'll notice that this guy doesn't have nearly as many of these modules as these others do, but I can right click here and I can add all kinds of stuff. I got velocity, I got size. I'm not going to go over all these because, man, it is a ton to take in. I'm going to cover some relevant ones that are going to be really nice for you guys and kind of just show you how to browse around. So the power is in your hands and you can discover for yourselves how all this stuff works. All right. So one important thing you need to understand is that type data. Up here in this top gap is where the type data lives. So I right click here, I can go type data. And the type data is the type of emitter you're working with. And there's some fundamental things that change when you change the type data. Like certain modules won't even work. They won't even show up because of the type. So like, for example, on GPU sprites, we have this vector field stuff. Vector fields don't do anything unless it's a GPU sprite. They won't work. Similarly, like if it's a beam, then there's certain things that are unique to beam types. Same with ribbons, et cetera, and meshes as well. So the type of particle you have really does matter. Okay. Come back over here because I like keeping it fresh. All right, so these are all different types. So if I hit G, I can like more easily select some of these. So this one here, if I open this up, is mesh emitter. All right, so you can see it has mesh data type up here, and it has mesh rotation instead of regular rotation. Not sure why that has to be different, but it does. All right. It has cylinder, which ironically enough is not unique to meshes. A cylinder is basically a spawn location. It's spawning from a cylinder, and that's why it's starting out in a ring shape and then bursting out. In here, I can define, the radius of the cylinder. I can define like all the quadrants of the cylinder that I want to emit from. If I only want to emit from like half of it or a quarter of it, I can decide on that. I can say if I want it to spawn from the surface only, so just like the outer edge of the cylinder, all that good stuff. And again, like all these here are editable. Like there's a curve of like how much drag it has, right? So like it drags over time, which means it starts with very little drag and then it has a ton of drag as it gets further out, which gives it that nice timing. This is all here for you guys to just dive in. Once you get a hold of this file, hopefully you can join the class and you can just dive through all of these. We've got lots of different kinds. We've got acceleration. I think like they're pretty self-explanatory. For the most part, the best way for you to learn, I'm going to say this again and again, get a hold of some files. If it's not my class, that's fine. Unreal has content. Check on their blog. They have free content every month that they give out. Just like dissect it, like find assets that you're excited to learn about, how it's made, dive in, pick it apart. In the class, we're also going to talk about how to make some of those big centerpieces, and I'm going to dive more into the details of like, and this is what I'm doing in this module, and this is how David Shevlin set that up, and how Luke Mason did this or that. And so we're really going to go into some like pro level, high end, how it's made. But this hopefully should be an introduction for you so that now you are started, you can dive in and tinker around with all of this. One last thing I want to tell you about, it's just some functionality and usability. Say I do a color over life that I really like right here, and I want it to be shared right here. I can hold shift, I click and drag, and now those two are linked. See how they have the same color little thing by them? And they have a little plus sign too. So I click on one, I'm editing both. So if I change the color on one emitter, it changes the color on the other. If I want to get rid of that, I can just control click, and now I have a duplicate of it, and I can delete the original for both of those. So now I've just unlinked it, if that makes sense. So you can control click to copy. Oops, that was a regular click. Control click to copy. Sorry. Without a link, you can click and drag if you just want to move it to another emitter, or you can shift drag it to link them. All right, so you are now equipped to go in Cascade. I want to see cool things coming out of you guys, tinkering around, kit bashing stuff. I'm actually going to do another video just about kit bashing. I'm going to give a demo of kit bashing. So stay tuned. There's more coming. So excited to share it with you guys.